What's up, Magical Misfits? Drew here, and obviously, once again today, you see me. I really want to take advantage. As I'm filming, it is nearing the end of October, and I really wanted to do a reading that tapped into the energies that are just sort of naturally around at this time of year. And I still may do so, as those energies aren't hit or miss exactly, like they kind of fade in and out. So maybe look for that. Hopefully I'll get to do that. But in the meantime, EFT just keeps coming up, and I feel very strongly called to share my specific method and technique for EFT. So here we are. First off, as always, I hope that all of you are doing really well and that everything is peaceful and easy and flowing in your worlds. And if not, I hope that it will be soon. I am sending you all the love and support that I possibly can. If you can hear a little noise in the background, as always, it is my Jude. She is snoring away in her bed over here. So please ignore. All right, EFT. What is EFT? Just let me start at the basics. So first off, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it is also referred to as tapping, because what we are doing when we practice EFT, we are choosing an issue, and I will give some examples as we go through, but we are choosing an issue that we wish to work on, something that causes us emotional distress or that we find harmful in some way in our everyday lives, thought patterns, emotions, things of that nature. Some people even use it for physical pain, physical ailments. But we focus our attention on what it is we're trying to change, and we use our fingers to tap on acupressure points in the meridian system, on mostly the face, but also a little on the body. And we use affirmations, positive affirmations. We affirm. Yeah, I do it a little bit different, but positive affirmations are used while doing the tapping. There are sort of two levels to this. On a more spiritual level, we are talking about energy. We are breaking up, we are shifting, we are moving, we are changing energy. We are working with energy. And on a more psychological level, this practice has actually been studied. It is recognized in conventional therapy as a self-help kind of method. It can be used for soothing. As I said, it can be used for sort of breaking up habits and changing behaviors and thoughts and things of that nature. Obviously, the way that I work with it and the way that many people work with it is a psycho-spiritual, a blending of the sort of psychological, mental, emotional, as well as the spiritual, and obviously the physical, because we are physically doing something as we move through. So we're working on all levels when we work with EFT. I personally have been doing EFT since I don't know, anywhere between 2007 and 2009. I don't know. I've been doing it for a long time. And originally I just did it the way that I was taught and the way that everyone does it, which is, usually how we begin anything, is how someone tells us how to do the thing. But last year, I really developed my own method of EFT. I had some guidance from Jehuti or Thoth, as well as my own sort of experimentation with it that has led me to what for me is the most effective method of EFT I've ever worked with. And I'd really like to share that. I feel called to share that. So I don't want this video to be too long, but I really do want to be very sort of in depth with my description of EFT, because a lot of, you can find all kinds of information everywhere, so many videos on YouTube, but a lot of them are really quick. It's like, this is what you do, and there you go. And that's lovely. And maybe there's an element of they take you deeper into that if you work with them, and there's an exchange of money for their time and effort, which, you know, I'm not knocking that at all, but I just really feel called to break this down. So it might take me a minute. Again, as I said, you can find all kinds of videos, and they'll take you through the basic run through. I have never seen anyone who does EFT the way that I do EFT. Maybe they are, but I haven't seen it. Typically, they will run you through the whole procedure one time for the issue. There are a lot of people that do the check-in. I love the check-in. I absolutely do the check-in. I personally don't just do one run through. I do 3 cycles actually of the whole thing. And that might sound excessive if you know anything about EFT, but I find it to be hugely beneficial. I'm really taking my time with it. It's a little bit more involved, but it still takes maybe 7 minutes, 10 minutes at most to get through the whole thing. And when I work with EFT, I work with it on a daily basis for the issue. I don't necessarily do it every day all year long, but if I have an issue and I feel called to work with EFT, which I do right now, which is why I'm making this video in part, I will work with it every single day. And 10 minutes a day, you know, 5 to 7 minutes, 10 at most minutes a day is really not a huge sacrifice of time in a day. And it absolutely is for the benefit of the practitioner. So I can't recommend it enough, really, I can't. So firstly, let me give you a little insight into why I do EFT the way that I do it. Little backstory. I worship and work with Kemetic deity, ancient Egyptian deity. And when Ost came into my life in 2019, it was in 2020 that I really developed a practice with her and dedicated and the whole 9. But I developed a devotional practice in which I took inspiration from what actual magician priests would have done in Kemet, and adapted it and used it again as inspiration for my own devotional and what I do. And with what I do, there are certain things that I say, there are certain gestures and whatnot, and there are just certain things that I do. And originally that was just with Ost. And then when Jehuti Thoth came in, Ost is Isis. When Jehuti came in, I began to do the same for him. And after a little while, he told me that I needed to be doing kind of the opposite of what I was doing for Ost. So, for example, one of the gestures is like this, that it's a symbolic gesture to represent something that would have been done that I don't really, it doesn't really apply to my life in modern day. For him, it needed to be, there's a posture I take during prayer, and it involves being down on one knee, and I step forward with my right foot. When I do this with Ost, and he showed me I needed to step forward with my left foot for him. And like everything I did for her kind of needed to mirror and do the opposite, do it with the left side of my body for him, which at first I thought was kind of funny. Initially that was a little counterintuitive, but for the way my brain works, but I know better than to, like, I just went with it. And later, he kind of showed me why that was necessary. It became clear to me. He was insistent that anytime I do something with my right, when we're talking spiritual practice, if I do something with my right hand, I have to also do the thing with my left hand. And it was made clear to me that that was about balancing and connecting the 2 hemispheres of my brain through spiritual practice. And shortly after this, for a time period, I had intense spiritual practice. My spiritual practice always evolves and changes with what I need in any moment. And at that time, it was like 2 hours every day of spiritual practice. And there was breath work, and there was chanting, and there was meditation, and there was working with my mala, and there was EFT. Initially, I went through with my right hand, through my mala beads, doing whatever mantra or affirmation or whatever it was I was doing. And he showed me, you need to do your left. And so I did. And then the same came along with EFT. I was doing my tapping, and he was like, you need to go through each cycle with what you're doing and do it with your left. And I began to do so. And I noticed a change. I noticed a shift. I noticed it being more effective for me. Again, when I did my check-in, I will explain the check-in process, but I found it to be very effective. And over time, I just felt really drawn to use both hands, do a third cycle. And I found that to be even more effective. And there are probably a multitude of reasons why, at least a couple different reasons why, as far as maybe there is something to this whole hemisphere balancing and connecting thing. I absolutely am going to believe there is, because Jehudi told me to do it. Why would he tell me to do it? But more than that, it could also just be the fact that someone going through a very bare bones, which I will demonstrate, sort of introduce you to a very bare bones method, very quick, very bare bones method. At least for me, it might take me twice as long to work through whatever I'm working through doing that than it does my own method, just because my own method is more meticulous and more involved in one go. So where maybe it would take me 2 weeks to a month to do the bare bones and get through what I'm working on, it might take me a week and a half using my own method, my more in-depth method, which again, doesn't really take any time at all. So an example of a bare bones that you can find tutorials for on YouTube is identifying the issue. So let's say I don't stand up for myself. I don't have healthy boundaries, okay? And people tend to walk over me or treat me poorly. You identify the problem. So even though I don't stand up for myself, I love and accept myself. This would be one way to do this. And so, they start the tapping. Even though I don't stand up for myself, I love and accept myself. And then they might drop it. There are methods where it's like, even though, and you're just, even though, and you don't even say the whole thing. I believe that could absolutely be effective. For me, my thought process behind why I do things the way I do them, when I think a thought, it creates thought frequency. There is an energy signature there. And when I speak words, there is sound frequency produced. There is an energy signature there. And when my thoughts and my words are in alignment, and I'm speaking what I'm thinking, it amplifies. Both of those energies are then amplified, and they're stronger as they move out into the world, as that vibration leaves my body, in my energy sphere. Whereas the opposite is true. If I'm thinking like negative thoughts, but I speak something positive, they detract from one another. Maybe, even totally negate one another and sort of pull each other down. So for me, I want to be speaking this out loud. I want to say the whole thing, as I want to articulate it very clearly. I want to be very deliberate. So I'm never going to be like, even though, unless I am just in the most hurry in the world and I just don't have time, but I really want to do some tapping. That is not normal for me. I don't do that. Like, I do the whole thing. Having said that, I am not, again, negating the efficacy, the effectiveness of the first sort of pared down method. One of my dearest people ever, my soul sister, whom actually named me She Who Walks Between the Worlds, if she were out in public and found herself becoming overwhelmed, anxious, or agitated or anything, she would very discreetly tap on the first point, without drawing any attention to herself. If she could be thinking, what she needed to think at the time, sure. If not, just, knowing I'm doing this to soothe, to self-soothe, to bring this down. And that would help her, bring down whatever was coming up inside of her in that moment. Now, to me, that's kind of a Band-Aid. Later, you go back and you do the whole thing and you work on it for however long it takes, and maybe use other psycho-spiritual methods as well. But EFT tapping can be used in many ways for many applications, in many situations and circumstances. And again, the actual technique and procedure for doing so, there are different ways of going about it. And I suggest that if you are drawn to tapping, you experiment and you figure out what works for you, much as I did. I guess we just kind of get into it. Beforehand, let's talk about the check-in method real quick. For me, there are sacred postures, sacred positions, and they're pretty obvious. But what I am talking about, so I bring myself into one of my sacred positions in order to check in. And I like to sit lotus position, so cross-legged, my spine straight, and I bring my hands sort of in a prayer position in front of my chest. And another really good sacred position for me is the same thing, only my palms resting open on my knees. Mudras, I use mudras. Even laying on my back with my hands on my chest or on my solar plexus, even just down by my side, depending on, what's happening, like shamanic journey, that kind of thing, astral journey. Those can also be sacred positions for me. But what I mean when I say sacred position is I come into the position, and by doing so, I almost instantaneously feel grounded in this earth plane, centered in my body, and connected to the spiritual realms. All three of these things, these elements, are hugely important to me for spiritual practice and for this check-in. Now, the way the check-in works for me might be different for you. Like, maybe when you do that, it's like a scale of 1 to 10. Where am I at with X issue on scale to 1 to 10? For you, maybe you'll actually see a little scale with a little dial that's telling you, shows you what number. Maybe you'll see colors, and the colors will coordinate to a number. Maybe you'll hear something. You'll actually hear a number or something. It's high, it's low, something like that. Maybe you'll just know. You'll just have a knowing, which is kind of what happens with me. But to me, my go-to is always knowing and feeling, whether it's an emotion or actually feeling it in my body. And with this check-in, I feel it in my body, and I just kind of know what that means. I know what that number means. So what the placement in my body corresponds to what number. So for me, like down at my root chakra, so like at the base of my pelvis, near my tailbone area, kind of, and it's vague, but in that area, all the way up here to my heart. So down there is 0 at the root, and in my heart chakra, kind of this area, is 10. So where I feel it in my body, I know, sometimes I'm like, is that a 6 or a 7? And then I just know, oh, that's a 7. Oh, that's a 5, whatever. But I physically feel the sensation. It's like a nervous energy almost a little bit rising up my body. I feel the energy moving through my body. And that's how I know where I'm at on a scale from 1 to 10. So the issue I'm going to be working on, I'm leaving it very vague for the time being, because I know that whatever is in my highest good, whatever is most important at this time, is the issue that will be worked on first. But I have limiting beliefs. We all have limiting beliefs, right? Things that hold us back because we were told, or we came to believe, XYZ is impossible, for whatever reason. My check-in is, on a scale from 1 to 10, where am I at with these limiting beliefs? I have limiting beliefs. How strong is that on a scale from 1 to 10? So that's what I'm about to do. I mean, I took a second there, but almost immediately it was a 10. It's a 10. I haven't worked on this, so it is a 10. I will go through my complete cycle, the 3 rounds with tapping. Kind of take a deep breath, and I will reconnect and tap back in and see what the number is. And typically the number will be lower. And we're going to talk about how that plays into how this works and how long I go through the process and what that looks like after I show you tapping. So there may be people, I think, that do less. Like they may not do what is my last point. There are some people that don't do that, I think, the last point that I do. And there may be people that do more points than me. Again, there are so many places, so many videos, so many websites, what have you, so much information about tapping out there. Run wild. But I do 9 points on the body and face. I typically use either 3 or 2 fingers depending on what feels comfortable in the spot. So like here on the heel of the hand, I use 3 fingers. I really want to make sure that I am getting the point. For the top of the head, I use 3 or 4. For the chest here, I use 3 or 4. For the underarm, 3 or 4. And I'm going to take off my glasses and be blind for a little while. But all the other points, I use 2 fingers because it's what's comfortable. When I tap, I typically do not tap very hard. I play it by ear. You can feel your body is telling you what it needs. But a gentle tap is typically more than enough. We're just gently stimulating the meridians, right? These acupressure points. So for me, this would look like this. And I won't necessarily make you watch the whole thing. I don't know. We'll figure it out in editing. But I will give you some at least. I'll give you 1 full cycle for sure. And then maybe just, show you bits of the other 2, just not to bore you. On the last cycle, I do both at the same time, which means I have to do my hands. I have to take turns. That's the only one. And then the rest are all done at the same time because obviously I can't tap both hands at the same time. So we start. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. This point is at the very corner of your eyebrow here, right at the corner. You'll feel it. The next point is the outside edge of the eye. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. And then directly under the eye, on the bone, you'll feel it. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Between the nose and the upper lip, even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. And the little dip between the bottom lip and the chin, even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Under the collarbone, even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. And under the underarm, down a bit, kind of where a woman's bra strap would sit, toward the back. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Now, initially, you might feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're just tapping in the general areas I've told you to. But the more you do this, you'll feel like you'll know when you're not tapping in the right place. You'll feel it. When you get that right place, you'll feel it and you'll remember it. And you'll know exactly where that place is and where you're tapping, where you should be tapping, where you need to be tapping. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. When I say you can feel, for me, there's this tenderness. It's not unpleasant, but there's this tenderness when I am tapping my meridian points that feels different than when I'm not tapping the meridian point. Except for in my head, even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Here, it's more about where I experience my crown chakra. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. Even though I have these limiting beliefs, I deeply love and completely accept myself. And Jude accepts me too. All right, I'm going to do my check-in. Okay, I feel like when I check in where my limiting beliefs are now, they feel like a 6. I was expecting a 7 just because I was sort of instructing as I went and I wasn't as sort of centered in the process as I might have been otherwise, but that's pretty good. I usually find 3 or 4 is sometimes only 2. Like it only goes down 2. But I've never experienced it not going down. Now, I'm at a 6. So tomorrow, I'll do this again. And I might start at a 6. I might start back at a 10. I might start at an 8. Who knows? But I'll do the process and check in when I'm done, where it's at. And I'll keep doing this until I get to a 0. And when it comes down to a 0, I will check in the next day. I will do the check-in again the next day. And if it's not a 0, I'll do the process again. These limiting beliefs. Until when I check in first thing the day of, before I've done tapping, I'm at a 0. When that happens, I'm going to take a moment to get in my sacred position and I'm just going to sit in gratitude for all 3 of the elements that have come into play, the spiritual, my body, and the earth plane, the 3D reality, all of these things working together, coming into harmony on this issue. I'm just going to sit in that gratitude. And maybe, for my healing team and, us, Jehudi, Sekhmet, whomever, for watching over me and guiding me, angels, ancestors, whatever, just holding space and gratitude for the assistance and for the process. And then I'm going to follow up. I'm not done. So I've pulled out something. I've sort of neutralized something. Again, since in this case it's very vague, I'm going to be very vague with what I fill it in with too. If it were more specific, if it were like my relation, like maybe something to do with money and in my relationship to money, and maybe even something very specific, like maybe I overspend. If that were the issue, then I could go through, even though I do this, I deeply love and completely accept myself. And then when I was okay and neutralized there, I could go back in and say something like, I saved my pennies for a rainy day. I don't know, like I saved this much money each paycheck, or, you know, I don't know, something to sort of rewrite that. So again, for me, this is very general, just these limiting beliefs. I feel very called to change my perspective and the way that I look at things. So my affirmation my positive affirmation of change in the direction I want to move in, once I've accepted myself as I am, would be something along the lines of, I see everything in new ways. You know, something like that. And I would go through again. So I'd do my check-in. So on a scale from 1 to 10, where am I at with seeing things in a new way? And I'm sure it's going to be low. I'm going to feel it low. And so I'm going to do my tapping until I get it to 10, until it stays at 10. In between these two steps, depending on how I feel about it, I might do some release. I might take the time to, I might even do a cycle of releasing that, you know, limiting beliefs that, you know, are holding me back or whatever, and then move into the pulling in something positive to replace that. It honestly depends on the situation. I probably will do that with this. Hopefully, if I'm lucky, that wouldn't take me more than 3 weeks, but it could take longer than that. I mean, I typically find it depends on how sticky the issue is. But if I work on it consistently every day, 3 to 7 days is typically where I fall in with this, doing my specific technique of EFT every single day on an issue. Again, it's going to depend on the stickiness of the issue. And if I've done any work prior that touches, you know, any psycho-spiritual work, any shadow work, trauma work, whatever, that is underlying the issue that I'm working on with tapping. So I think that's it. I hope that's it. I hope that I explained everything properly and I didn't forget anything. Sometimes I go back, edit my videos, and I'm like, I totally forgot that thing, but it's okay. I guess you'll get, you know, whoever needs this will get what they need out of it. But again, first and foremost, each of us are energetic individuals, and what we need at any given time on our journey is going to shift and change. But please don't feel like you have to just accept things as a one-size-fits-all. Experiment. If you don't feel called to do my method exactly as I do, start with just a more simple pared down method and see what that does for you. Change it up. Change how you affirm what you're doing. Do it aloud, do it silently, do whatever you feel like you need to do, whatever you feel called to do. And if that seems to be working for you beautifully, then wonderful. But I would still encourage you to experiment and play around, because you never know. And again, what works today might not work tomorrow. So I do think there's something to be said about the linking, the bridging the hemispheres of the brain. I know that trauma, for example, builds up, I don't remember what it's called, but the part of the brain that separates the two hemispheres gets thicker with trauma, and we can make it thinner. Like, there are physical changes in the brain, is what I'm getting at. And just doing things with both hands isn't the key to that, but it's part of it. Another thing that I will do sometimes is I will listen to like binaural beats, like hertz, specific hertz. I like the one that resonates with the heart, but they have different hertz that resonate with all different sort of things, and I will sometimes listen to that as I'm doing tapping. Again, for me, it's about with brain activity. Just play around with it. Maybe try to work it into other psycho-spiritual practices that work for you, techniques that are beneficial to you in your own individual spiritual practice, and just make it your own. I'm not going to pretend like tapping is for everyone, but it's definitely worth a try. It's not difficult, and it can be hugely beneficial. So yeah, that's it. That's all I think I have to say on the topic for now anyway. And I just want to thank anyone who's still here for hanging out with me and affording me the opportunity to share this with you. And until next time, much love and gratitude.